Hello, hello. This is Rashad Cartwright. Listen, we coming back to you for actually a special edition. We broke a story on our website earlier today on Tuesday regarding a young pastor who was fired from his church for attending a Rick Ross concert. I wanted to bring some individuals and some preachers who are well qualified, who can speak on this matter, to elaborate a little bit, and we'll just have an open dialogue. First, we got Pastor Akeem Walker. Pastor Akeem Walker, he's the pastor of First Baptist Missionary Church of Powersville, North Carolina. And also we have Pastor Quinn Rodgers, who's the pastor of Chapel Hill Missionary Baptist Church down in North Carolina and out in Charlotte, correct?
Correct.
Correct. Thank you, brothers, for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
No problem. Let me. I just want to have an open dialogue and start it off. Pastor Rodgers, tell me what you think when you got the story. Pastor fired for attending a Rick Ross concert. First thing that comes to mind. Do you feel it's all right, or what's your thoughts on that?
Well, immediately the first thing I wanted to know is why. You know, a lot of times when you read articles, they don't have everything behind it. That there's some situations that could be variables behind whatever was presented. But the second thing, based on the surface of what I've read, I was just a bit concerned because if the article presents what really happened, and if he really just got fired over a Rick Ross concert, that brought some concerns to me because Rick Ross, Jay-Z, or whomever, most of our church members listen to that type of music, or perhaps even listen to something that's similar, whether it's R&B, rock and roll, or what have you. So that's it. It just kind of said, okay, well, what's moving in the church that will cause that to even be of conversation? Because, I mean, once we give the benediction, a lot of us go back to listening to that type of music. What's the difference in listening to it and actually going to see it? Mm-hmm. So that was my thought. That was my thought process when I immediately saw it.
Okay, Pastor Keem, should a pastor be fired for attending a Rick Ross concert?
I would absolutely say that is the most absurd thing I've heard a pastor being released for. Mm-hmm. Immediately, I was enraged at seeing that article. Like Pastor Rodgers said, unless there's something underneath the surface that we don't have any knowledge of, this pastor didn't do anything immoral or that was less integrous of the office which he serves in. And so my opinion is he should not have been released. And I know the article alludes to the fact that the deacons had conversation with him prior to about attending a Lil Wayne concert. And there's a difference between expectations of the church and the office of a pastor and opinions of deacons. And so if the deacons went to him to share their opinion, that's one thing. If it was a contractual issue, then we have something to deal with other than that. But on the surface, what the article alludes to is just that the deacons were upset that he went, and so he should not have been released.
Pastor Quinn.
Yes, sir.
Your thoughts?
Well, here lies again. My thoughts is pretty much what I stated earlier. I can't. Me as a pastor, if that's the case, then I need to put everybody out the church. Mm-hmm. Because if we're trying to build a perfect church and, say this, that, and the other about what the pastor is to do, then I need to be able to have the right to say what your household is to do. And if we're going to build this perfect church, well, the church is imperfect the day you walked in it.
Absolutely.
The moment you walked into the church is imperfect. Furthermore, rap music when you look at the culture of hip hop and where it comes from the generation prior to us. We sampled beats from their generation. And we sample because, again, it's like a child being raised by a parent. We were brought up based on your music. So you can't talk about Lil Wayne or Rick Ross and all the negative vibes that come from them and not talk about music like I Be Stroking or Curtis Mayfield, I'm your nigga in the alley, excuse me. I'm your doctor when you need me, when you smoking on some trees. I'm your pusher man. You can't talk about Kevin Hart or Eddie Murphy if you're not going to talk about Red Fox and Mom's Mabley. I mean, you can't have that, and you can't do that. And if that's the case, every cookout at a deacon's house, every cookout at a church member's house need to play strictly gospel. Half of us are here because somebody played Art Kelly and Marvin Gaye and went and probably saw them.
Yeah, gotcha. Now I want to play devil's advocate, okay? And I give you my opinion, in this. But I want to play devil's advocate to make this a interesting dialogue for the individual who's not saved. What message does it give across, though? If I'm not saved, then I look over and I'm at a concert and a preacher and my pastor, the preacher that I plan to attend the church, is right there. Does that bring a negative sense to the gospel, and does that water down our ministry and water down our position as preachers of the gospel?
I would say. Well, I'm gonna defer to Pastor on that. I'll let you have that.
It's funny that you asked that question. The church that I presently serve is in North Carolina, as we already stated. And a couple of months ago, I was at the Umoja Festival, which is Pastor Rodgers, a festival we have in Virginia, celebrating the African American heritage. I was there at a concert, minding my own business, and I hear someone yelling, "Pastor, Pastor." I keep walking because none of my members should be in Virginia at the time of night that I was in. And so as I keep walking, this gentleman taps me on the shoulder, and it's a husband and wife couple. But the husband says, "Pastor," he says, "man, I'm glad I see you out here enjoying yourself." He said, "It lets me know that my pastor knows how to live a balanced life, and it helps me and my wife." And they're older than I. They're probably in their mid-40s, and I'm 29. And I wasn't doing anything out there but enjoying the music like everybody else. And so I think to a non-believer, it shows them that what we do and how we live is not confined to some gospel or that is meant to constrain us, but yet to teach us how to live a balanced life. Just by attending a concert, I can't see how that taints the image of what a Christian is or how a Christian should live.
One of the comments that was submitted on the site, someone said, "How can we?" Because a lot of individuals saying, "Well, Jesus, he ministered and he dealt with the unsaved, and he was with the places the unsaved hung out at." But the question, a lot of in comments and responses individuals had, they said, "Well, Jesus won't there doing wrong or participating in whatever worldly event they was participating in." Is there a fine line that we have to draw when we say, well, we want to dwell and we want to go out and reach the unsaved? Then, well, we want to go out and reach them, but we want to participate in everything that they participate as well. Pastor Quinn.
I think there's things that we have to look at. I think, Jesus, yes, he hung out with sinners, he hung out with Christian folk, but I think in this generation of church, we have to look at outside of the box ministry. We can't be so. Everybody in the church is already saved in our eyesight. So why do we have to stay in the church? Let me start there. But then secondly, Jesus reached people on their level. When he dealt with Peter, James, and John to bring them into the fold to be disciples, he used a boat and he used fish. So he went to their level and brought them into the fold. But he had to meet them where they were. He couldn't just say, "Okay, y'all are going to come fish for me for the rest of your life." No, he said, "I'm going to get on the boat. I'm going to do what y'all do, but I'm going to show you another way of doing it." I think for this generation of church, we are constantly shifting. So, I think, with regards to, hip hop and this preacher and this, that, and the other, and him attending this concert, it brings an awareness that we have to look at different methods. We have to look at transforming the method, but not necessarily transforming the message. Because, again, we are in a generation, whether they like it or not, hip-hop has penetrated the church. And it's going to be here. It penetrated the church when Kirk Franklin showed up. And when Kirk Franklin showed up, everybody said, well, he's going to hell. But before that, it was John P. Key. He was going to hell. And then before that, it was the Winans. And so music is going to continue to evolve. And the pastor's job and duty is to meet the people on that level. And so the goal for the pastor, I think, is to continue to, meet people where they are. Now, yeah, Jesus transformed water into wine. And yes, I read some of the comments. He was leading people to Christ, but he also had to understand the people that he was leading to Christ as well.
Pastor Ken.
I want to jump in because I think this is an issue as I read some of the comments about where's the standard and, it's tainting the image. I'm still looking to find out where Jesus ever set a standard as to what one should do or should not do when it comes to how they live their life. What's even more disturbing about this article is, if I read it correctly, some of the members spotted him at the concert. So if we want to be fair, let's get those members and excommunicate them from the church. Because they saw the pastor at the concert. Now, if he was out there twerking or something, that's something totally different. Bottles, that's a whole nother issue. But if the brother was just enjoying a concert, I think as leaders we're called to live a standard. But I think we run the risk of losing a whole generation of people. When I say generation, I'm talking about young, middle, and seasoned saints. Because we use things to constrain them. Like the Pastor Rodgers said, that when you look at music, you have things that have samples like Kirk Franklin, and he often samples other music to his gospel music. Now, let's have this conversation. What we sing in church on Sunday morning, what we call gospel, is not gospel. And so if we're going to just cast stones at this brother, I think we have to look at this thing from a broader spectrum. Some people was arguing, well, was he there to pass out ministry tracts? I don't know. Did this brother go to the concert for ministry purposes? I doubt it, because I know I wouldn't. He probably went to enjoy himself. And whatever he was there for, I think we just need to let this man understand, and let the people understand that we're called also to live private lives.
Gotcha. My question, of course, like I said, I want to play the little devil's advocate. I want to get these real answers and issues. Individuals are saying, okay, a preacher, they're looking at the preacher, the men of God, called by God, and they're saying, you're talking about a standard, and we preach love, we preach respect, we preach loving one another. But when individuals have rap lyrics of hate, and they have rap lyrics of for instance, with the latest of Rick Ross, he was cut from his endorsements deal of rapping of lyrics of the Molly, of raping women, and kind of almost endorsing drugging up women and taking advantage of them. So as a preacher, if I'm preaching love and I'm preaching all of these things, but yet even if I'm not twerking or I'm not dancing, but I'm there supporting these individuals that are preaching this message, though, can I really reach the unsaved and really be an effective witness if I'm there supporting everything the unsaved are doing?
Well, let me say this. I think this is a bigger issue than just a pastor and Rick Ross, and that I think for us as pastors, because I'll be honest, am I a Rick Ross fan? No. Do I listen to Jay-Z? Of course. Am I a Lil Wayne fan? No. But do I listen to other various kinds of rap music? Yes. I think the issue for the church has been that rap music has been the issue, and that supporting rap music is wrong. Whereas when you look at the historical context of rap music, it was really a social and political movement. It was really established to be a voice for the African American community, because we did not have no voice post the civil rights movement, really. I mean, we had one, but we were looking for our voice in the inner cities, where you had music like Don't Push Me Because I'm Close to the Edge, I'm trying not to move, I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle out here. So you have that generation now who are grown-ups who are having children. And our generation is introducing our children to hip hop. Well, hip hop, rap music is a totally different. It's totally different now. So I think for the church, I think it is the struggle of accepting the fact that it is a hip hop concert, or it's just hip hop in general. I think it's a bigger picture than just him going to a rap concert and being supportive. I think anything that is supportive of hip hop and the connotations that hip hop has, being that it's misogynistic, it promotes gang violence, and this, that, and the other, where in the reality, that's not what it was. It just became that when it was commercialized and it was made this big brand of music. I think the approach for us is being able to explain to the church, or maybe introduce to the church what hip-hop really is. Because I'll be the first to tell you, one of the things that I do when I go to youth conferences is I rap. I freestyle before I preach. And I've had a DJ in the pulpit at my church. I got pictures on Facebook with that. And the church respected that, but I had to introduce them to that. And when they were introduced to hip-hop, then it made it okay for me to introduce more things, and they accepted the hip-hop, and they accepted me being who I am inside of that culture. So to see me at a hip-hop concert would be much different if I did not, I guess in that sense, did not introduce my church to it. But I think it's a bigger picture. It's hip-hop and the church. And the hip-hop ain't going nowhere, and the church is not going nowhere. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Pastor Keem, you was going to say something?
Yeah, I think, like my brother just said, it's a bigger issue than just music alone. I'll be the first to say I am not a Rick Ross fan, but I do listen to other rap music. Everybody is honing in on this one song, Papa Molly, whatever the lyrics are to that song. But to the preacher's defense, the pastor's defense, there are a lot of gospel artists. When I go on iTunes, I don't buy a whole album. So I doubt if this brother woke up going to the Rick Ross concert with the idea of that one song in mind. He probably, even if he knows the song, I'm sure he doesn't condone the raping of women. I can probably safely say that. But I think because we know that one song is his latest hit song, we're looking at it as him supporting it. Well, I buy gospel music from various artists, and I don't know the entire album. And so I think we have to look at it from a perspective of, was this brother... Let me throw this in there. Evidently, that this brother was not well known to his church about his integrity, because if that was the case, they wouldn't have to question if this pastor supported the raping of women or such things, date rape, drugs, or whatever, by him going to a concert. Now, I understand what you're saying, Brother Cartwright, about, going to a concert does automatically say to the person that sees you that you are condoning the music or the message they're relaying, but that's a thin line. And could it be that we sometimes miss that line because we're at places that are questionable? But I just don't think that was the context of this brother going to that concert. I don't believe so.
Gotcha. I want to ask you this question. This goes to either one of you. It was submitted to AmericaPreachers.com. It said, if you went to a secular concert, I'm reading this verbatim, if you went to a secular concert, would you feel convicted or awkward if one of your members were there? And if so, then why would you attend?
No.
Why
No.
not?
I would
why
not. I would only, conviction only comes when you're doing something contrary to what your belief system says it is. And so if I'm solely at I'm trying to think of the last major Fantasia. When she came to Portsmouth, I think it was a year ago, I was probably sitting fourth row. It was Fantasia, Shirley Murdoch, and Joe, I think it was, yeah. And I saw various people from churches that I had done revivals at, preached at, and I didn't feel like I had to slide in the back door. If I had to, duck and hide, I was probably the first one when she came out and sung the collard green song. I was at the edge of the stage with my camera phone. I wasn't trying to be the...
Pastor Keem, not to cut you off, and I'm going to let you finish, but I wanted, because I know who's asking this question. They're probably saying, looking at R&B as one thing, and they're looking at rap as another. And they saying R&B is, sings love, but when you got hardcore rap that's talking about hating, killing, shooting, they're looking at that as another thing. Now, if we was looking at, I know you was talking about Jay-Z, so let's put that into the context of the frame. Would you feel convicted if you was at the Jay-Z concert? And if so, like she said, why would you even go?
No, actually, one of my college students at my church is trying to go to the Jay-Z concert. He's doing one, like I said, Thursday in Baltimore. If I can get tickets, I'm going, and I'm not going to feel convicted. As a matter of fact, I think it speaks volumes that to that brother that his pastor thinks enough of him to go with him to the Jay-Z concert. And like I posted on my Facebook status earlier, we are surrounding this issue about Jay-Z and Illuminati, where most people can't even define their own Christian walk or what Christology is before we start talking about Illuminati that we have no information about. So for me personally, I would not feel convicted as long as I was there attending a concert. I'm not drunk. I'm not inebriated. I'm not out here dancing on the stage with some women. So I'm just there solely enjoying the music.
Okay. Pastor Quinn, on your question, not really on the R&B, on like a Eric Benet or Fantasia or nothing like that, but we're looking at artists like, Rick Ross of 50 before, he went a lot of corporate world, but when he was on his Too Rich, Get Rich or Die Trying, or T.I., Nas, or someone that's promoting, would you feel convicted there if you saw one of your members there? And if so, why would you even go?
No, I wouldn't feel convicted. I mean, you got to look at it. These guys are characters, just like what we watch on TV. Jay-Z is not Jay-Z every day. He's Sean Carter. P. Diddy is not P. Diddy. He's Sean Combs. 50 Cent is not 50 Cent. He's Curtis Jackson. These guys are playing characters. I mean, yeah, they may have had a history, but who don't have a history? So these guys are up there. They're doing poetry with beats behind it, much like you would see at a coffee house. So would I feel guilty? No. For what? I mean, if you the way I look at it is, I will sit these. If my church members want to talk to me about it, that's fine. I have an open dialogue with them about it, but I need them to get a full understanding of what I look for. Jay-Z has a song out with Kanye West that says, "I'm not a businessman, I'm a business man." So you look at certain things like that, and you're able to communicate that to youth. You're able to say you're not just a businessman, but you are literally a business. You are a brand. What you do has a lasting effect on you. So build your brand now. He says, I had to get off the boat so I can walk on water. Quit being complacent. You use those lyrics to speak to our young people, but at the same time, if my church want to come up to me and talk about, well, pastor, this, that, and the other, I say, well, let's speak a little Hebrew or a little Greek, because I can speak that too. And they ma told ma nam yin shevet nam yin gam yaka. That's Hebrew. So, if you want to challenge me, that's fine. I have no problem. But there has to be a balance. And for me, if my members want to talk to me, that's cool. But I also will break it down to them. These guys are just characters. They're not who they are. How in the world did Jay-Z make a deal where his commercial is being seen during the NBA Finals? He sold 1 million copies. How did he brand that? Study the person. Don't study the artist. Study the businessman. Study Curtis Jackson. How in the world did he get a brand of vitamin water that's going to retire him for the rest of his life? And how can the church, see, we so caught up on the other stuff, but how can the church look at what is moving and look at the business behind it? Because we have to be about our Father's business. We can't let the sinners get everything, but study what is moving. Look at what is moving. And so I wouldn't feel guilty at all, because they got to understand where pastor is. And most of my members do. They understand where I'm at. So for them to come to me, they know they got to come correct, because I'm going to have something for them when they get there.
I got you. And I want to say this. And I want to, because of course I want to play devil's advocate. I want to be the voice of individuals who's not up on this interview, so we can get some kind of great dialogue and get some good understanding. Now, I know you said that is a, you talked about that line from Jay-Z. I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman. And you're talking about how they're characters, just like a movie, and they have words. But we teach you, when you say, you hear someone that says, well, we talk about the power of words, the power of what you say, the power of hearing things that affect our younger generation and our generations that come up. But for that individual that says, so if we just say that they are just words and there's no power in those words, that's almost what I'm hearing you saying, is no power in the words, even though they say them. But do you not believe that it has a negative effect on our ministry and our preaching, when we still support those negative words that a lot of times are preaching death?
I'm not saying that they're not power in them. What I'm saying is you got to listen to it for what it is. What I'm saying is there's power in their words, but you got to understand these guys are characters. They're not going around here shooting up folk every day. You got to understand that at the close of the day, and that's what I teach my young folk, these folk are characters. They are building a movie for you. I need you all to understand that what they're doing is not real. They have a big house. They're not in the hood. They're not out here shooting up folk, because if they were, they will be in jail. I mean, that's what. Now, the reason why I teach that, because to them there is power behind it. What I'm trying to do is say we need to extract the power behind it by understanding who they truly are. They are just characters. So, at the close of the day, you can't have a conversation about Jay-Z and not have one about Arnold Schwarzenegger or Will Smith. Will Smith had a thing against Eminem because he cussed in a song, but Will Smith is cussing all over the place in the movie. Well, if it's powerful in the rap song, then that same conversation needs to be discussed, not just about rap music, but it needs to be discussed about what movies we watch and the video games that these young people are playing. And it's our goal as pastors to present an atmosphere to say, listen, they don't do this on a regular basis. You all got it twisted. They're not doing this on a regular basis.
Let me ask you this question, because I think this is relevant. I know you mentioned about how the mark and how they are about that line from Jay-Z, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman, how they're business individuals. Now, I asked you in the beginning, I asked both of y'all, I said, is it right? Did they have a legitimate reason to fire the pastor? Okay. Now, if we're looking at you saying we need to operate more as a business, any corporation, if I go against the rules and the regulations of that job, and when they laid them out to me, if I go against that, then in a corporation or a business or Fortune 500 company, I would get a pink slip. I would be fired.
Let's back up. I think Pastor Walker, right?
Right.
Yeah, he brought out a good point. I think what we have to understand is this is perceptually driven. We don't have all the facts. So we don't have a contractual agreement in front of us, like he pointed out, to say this is what happened. What we're doing is based on that one little article that we read, because I don't know the pastor to be able to judge him or to be able to say that he was out of place, or even the church's bylaws to say that.
Got you. I was going to say, let's assume, just like you say, you're talking about a business. If it's a business and you say you got rules and regulations and things such as that, like in the corporate America, the same way if we should operate as a business, that gives them a legitimate right to fire a pastor. Is that not correct, Pastor Akeem?
Absolutely. Well, let me say absolutely not from what you're saying. Like my brother just said, for for instance, my contract here at my church lines out expectations.
Right.
If this brother, and let's assume that he did not have, let's say, a moral clause in his contract, because most businesses in corporate America has a moral clause in their contract, is what we're referring to. If he did not have a moral clause, then, and not knowing the church's bylaws and constitutions, then they were wrong. However, to play devil's advocate, if he had a contract and it addressed morality issues, or moral issues, I'm sorry, then he was absolutely wrong for attending the concert because he knew the expectations.
Right.
And so, but if that was not, and the reason why I say that is because the article said that the deacons had a conversation with him about attending a prior Lil Wayne concert. And there's a difference if I, as your supervisor, I say to you, Cartwright, I don't think you should do this. That's my opinion. But if the company lays out a contract and says you cannot do it, then that's a whole nother issue. Right. And so that's where we have to, we don't know what the issue was. Was it a contractual issue, or was it a matter of the deacons trying to save the face of their sacred name of their church?
See, and I think that's where a lot of individuals who's going to watch this broadcast, they're going to differ. And they're going to say, well, they're going to say everything as a preacher, as a man of God, they're going to say, and we talked about that standard, and you was talking about show me in the Bible where you look at that standard. They're going to look at it and say, well, a preacher should have some kind of common sense. They're going to say some kind of common sense on where he should show up, where he should not show up, what should he do. And instead of like in a contract having, you can't go to a concert, you can't do this.
Let me say this real quick to your point. Here's the difference between that line of standard. My contract, which I put in myself when I got here because I'm a single man, that I would not date anybody within my church's context. That's common sense. But my church cannot dictate to me how I choose to date in my personal life. That's not a contractual issue. My deacons can say all day, well, Pastor, I think you should marry, I don't think you should do this. And as long as I'm not doing anything to compromise the office of that God has called me to operate in, then that's not a contractual issue. That's an opinion issue. And so my contract says I won't date anybody within my church that's a member or partner of my church, and that's fine. But nobody can say to me that I'm not up to par as a pastor because I choose to date elsewhere or something of that sort. So in the same issue, I don't think, again, this is just a surface issue about this concert, because if this man is at a concert enjoying the music, I cannot see why he was released. That still baffles me that we're even having this conversation because a pastor was released for going to a concert. There has to be something that we're not seeing.
And I think that's the
biggest.
Go ahead.
For me, in terms of what I do, in terms of where I go, the thing that is a moral contract for me is this: if I can't take my daughter or my wife with me, then I don't need to be there. So that's just something that I do personally, because if I can't take her there, and if I can't take my wife there, then I don't need to be there. And that's just in my house. And wherever I go, I've always stated, you can come with me. But again, I think we're looking at it from the standpoint of firing based on a pastor and his desire to go to a concert and the view behind that. Now, me personally, I mean, I don't see why he should have been fired. But if that's how the church felt, then that's how the church felt. But I know for me, that's not, well, number one, my church ain't like that. Number two, wherever I go, my folk are willing to go with me. And there's not no problem behind that. So that if anybody got anything to say out there in internet land, that will squash that.
Yeah, gotcha. Now let me, of course, like I said, I want to play devil's advocate. I want to be a voice for individuals who don't know or who have the questions. It's funny you brought up your family. You said if some way you were to take your wife or your daughter, and somebody sent in the question to AmericaPreachers.com, and they said, would you take your daughter or your family or your wife to a Rick Ross concert, or they said / Nicki Minaj / Lil Wayne? And so, does it go against what you say? Because it almost seems like it goes against what you say. You say you wouldn't take
what I'm saying
your
is,
daughter to that concert, and because you wouldn't feel right, or you wouldn't feel right to go on, but you said you would go. Can you elaborate?
What I'm saying is, with my wife and my daughter, I wouldn't go. Well, this guy, we don't know who he went with. It could have been him just by himself. Now, if I'm a single man and I want to go, then fine. Have I been to a Kanye West concert? Of course. I said if I can't take them, then I won't go. Now, for me, I couldn't take my daughter to a Lil Wayne concert, but if my wife wanted to go, then we'll go. It's simple as that. Now, but that may be like on a date night or something. Okay? Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart came into the city, and I went and saw Kevin Hart and had me a good time. And then again, there are places like that is just designed for me and my wife. But there are other places that I know that my daughter can't go. What I'm saying is, if there's anywhere on the earth that I can't take either one of them with me, whether it's my wife or whether it's my daughter, then I don't need to be there. If I can take my wife and we can go together, fine. If I can take my daughter and we can go together, fine. If I can take the whole family and we can go together, fine. What I'm saying is, if I can't go somewhere and one of them two can't come with me, then we have a problem. For instance, I'm not going to no strip club. I'm not doing that. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
And I wouldn't subject my wife to that, and definitely couldn't take my daughter there.
Okay. I want to. Can I ask a question? All right, go ahead. Ask your question. Then I want to get back on that real quick.
I want to show the double standard that the church plays when it comes to this.
Right.
I went to see Kevin Hart myself. Okay, I'm not a Rick Ross fan, but I went to see Kevin Hart, and I enjoyed myself. It was hilarious. The only thing that I had a problem with is he uses the N-word a little bit too much for me.
Okay.
But the church tolerates that. We raised the issue of, let's just bring it up, Paula Dean using the N-word, but Kevin Hart uses it, and it's fine. The pastor can go to Kevin Hart, but he can't go to Rick Ross, who talks about raping and demoralizing women. I think it's a matter of personal and contextual preference as to where you serve. I am very open with my congregation about places I go in regards to. I may make mention to it. I use rap lyrics in my sermons all the time, and so I think we just got to look at it from a standpoint of what works where you serve, because what worked for this brother evidently would not work where I serve, and vice versa in Charlotte. I think it's a contextual issue as to what your churches expect, and the expectations that we sometimes as preachers place on ourselves.
I want to ask this. I want to ask this question because you brought up the thing about a strip club, and of course we're not going to dwell into that. We're not going to dwell.
Well, I'm gonna quit talking. Everything I give you, boy, you take it, and I've got a question.
No, no, we dialogue, we conversing. But my question is, individuals will watch this because I think we talk about the Hebrew, we talk about the Greek, but if we talk about the unsaved and individuals that don't know anything about the church, they trying to get into the church, and so they're saying, where is the boundary that we have to set that says, okay, now, or the line that we have to draw, because next thing you know, individuals will say, well, I can go to a strip club, and as long as I ain't tipping or I ain't drinking, I'm just enjoying myself as a preacher. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not attacking you or anything like that. We just having conversation. But my question is, where do we draw the line? That line where it just we keep pushing the envelope. And then we see it's no separation from us than from the world.
Pastor?
I think it is a very thin line, brother, Reverend Cartwright, and that line has yet to be discovered.
Yeah.
I think I'll push the envelope in this case and say I don't know anybody or any child that was born to amazing grace or Jesus keep me near the cross. Mm-hmm. So I think music is a personal preference. Again, we know the controversial lyrics that Rick Ross and some other rappers. I'll be honest to say I love some of Kanye's music, but I even had a problem with his latest album cover. I think it was a little bit too much for me with him on the cross. With the crown on his head. I think that was way too much for me. But he doesn't profess to be a Christian. He's an artist. And I would dare to say if we polled our congregations, over 60% of those who we preached to brought their music. Mm-hmm. And so I think while we should have a standard as leaders, we can't look at it from a double standard and say, well, we can listen to it, but pastor can't. I think that's absurd to even believe that. And so here again lies the issue of what really is the issue? Is the issue that pastor can listen to it in the privacy of his own home and we just don't want to know about it? Or was the pastor not discreet and got caught because we don't want people to know that our pastor listens to that music? So what really is the issue that the church needs to address?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Pastor Quinn, you was going to say something?
No, he addressed it. I mean, at the close of the day, I don't think you can compare strippers, number one, to music. I think that's just my comparison was I can't take, in terms of where me and my wife will go and things of that nature. So, I mean, if you want to go to strippers, I can't go there with you. But what I will say in terms of music is a universal language. It is. And for me, with regards to the church in terms of the fine line, I think that line is being crossed daily. I mean, like I said, Kirk Franklin calls himself nephew, but nobody questions where he gets that from. Well, that comes from Snoop.
Yep.
Snoop started that because Snoop's uncle is the one who pretty much took him under his wing. And so he always calls himself nephew. And he got that from Snoop Dogg. Nobody questions that. But we see him on Sunday Best. And then you got young people, you got older people out here saying, "What up, nephew? What up?" But you don't know where you got that from. I've seen church, not my church, but I've seen it in my travels. What up, nephew? So, the question is, are we just, again, is it an artist or is it hip hop? Because if it's an artist, then, okay, I understand some of what you're saying. But again, as I stated to you from the jump, the issue is more hip hop, the culture, and the church. And it's not really Rick Ross or Wayne or whomever. It's hip hop and the church. Hip hop is here. It has already penetrated the church. So is there a fine line? Yeah. I'm not saying you come into church and you start cussing and holding and grabbing yourself and getting women to dance. No. But is it here to stay? Yes. That's why we got artists like The Truth. Ty Tribbett is birthed out of this movement. Miley Music is birthed out of this music. And a whole bunch of people are birthed out of this hip-hop genre. And it's here to stay. So is there a fine line? I think we've already crossed the line. I think in terms of the church, we just got to decide, some of the kingdom, not all the churches, but some of the kingdom have to decide whether or not they're going to be receptive to that. Because whether it could be Rick Ross today, and then tomorrow it can be somebody else. It is what it is. But I think it's just a conversation about hip hop and church, and it's not going nowhere. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, it's definitely a conversation. I believe that the article made so much noise and traction is because you have both sides. You have one side, the preacher side, who is human, who is who wants to live, who likes to, I don't want to say have a good time because people can take that out of context, but who just want to be a person but still has that mantle and that man of God or that woman of God to live. But then you have the individual who is not saved, and then the saved layperson who is looking at it and saying, come on now, we can't have our leaders in the same place as the congregation. Yeah, if my congregation is there, but the congregation is not the leader and trying to lead us into this salvation, lead us into this problem. I think that's where the real why it made so much traction is because you have two different sides, and one's trying to see the other side, and the other side is trying to and the other trying to show them where we stand and where we are at. But I think both of y'all made two great cases, two great opinions of where you stand. Me myself, I'm nowhere. Am I perfect? I listen to everything in my iPod and my iPhone is not gospel. You know, I listen. I still listen to my rap. I still listen to my R&B. Some things I can't listen to on the lyrics. When I say I can't listen to that, I used to listen to before. It's just it don't feel right with me. But some stuff I still do when I'm in the gym. If I'm working out, it's hard for me to work out to. I love Shirley Caesar, but it's hard for me to work out to Shirley Caesar. Right. But so I mean, I'm with you on that. I disagree on some areas. I do kind of disagree with you, and that's that standpoint. And like I said, I let you know where I stand. Of where I went to. And let me say this: I went to the Kevin Hart concert. The Kevin Hart with the Laugh at My Pain. I was there and I had a good time and enjoyed myself. And but some things I just can't find myself in a place, especially if I know that it was one of the members of the church, and that would convict me. It would convict me, and it would have me at a place that say, you know what? This ain't right, because if I feel convicted here, then I know that's not the place that I need to be. I think that's maybe where we are different in our views. Pastor Keem, you want to say something?
Let me use your terminology. I have a question for you.
Go ahead. We reverse the roles. Okay.
Yeah, you said you felt conviction. Here's my question though: did you feel convicted for being there, or did you feel convicted because one of your church members were there?
I think. And I want to answer the question. I'm not. Yeah, I'm stuttering, but I want to make sure I answer.
Good question, Pastor.
Yeah, I want to make sure I answer it correctly. I felt convicted more, not so of necessarily it was hesitation of going, but then when I seen a member, it brought out that conviction and saying, hold up now. It made it even more, because every time I would hear something that the artist said that disagreed with love or things such as that, if they rapping about hate or killing or shooting or fighting, I said, man, it ain't sit right with me. And so that's where it just illuminated that conviction. I already felt some type of way going, but then when I see others that I'm trying to minister and trying to bring it to the sake, that just messed me up to a place where I said, nah, this can't be for me. I can't do it like this. And I don't know, maybe that's where we differ a little bit at.
No, I agree with what you're saying. Like I said, I went and there were moments where one or two times, and I'm not saying we, I'm talking generically speaking, we hear the N word all the time. Okay. And for me, I laughed. There were times I laughed, and then it got us to a certain point where he just used it excessively for me. It was just too much. Okay. And so at those moments, I felt convicted, but not because of who was around. Okay. I just felt like, man, okay, come on, Kevin, like you can do a little bit better than this. Yeah. It got to the point where it was no longer funny. Right. But outside of that, I didn't feel convicted for being there. But again, here's the difference, and what my argument is: those who know me, if they saw me there because they know me, would know that I don't condone that. But I can't condone what this man says out of his mouth, and I'm not going there to say I'm gonna leave out here calling everybody the N-word. It's just it happened. You don't laugh at it, and the next joke he tells is funny. I laughed at it and kept it moving. Mm-hmm. But I understand what you're saying. You have to know what works for you as a person mm-hmm. and the people you serve. And the problem that I have with the 21st century church is we have a whole lot of people trying to force personal opinion on the masses of the people. And the gospel is not a fact of personal opinion, it's the gospel. So there's a difference between the standard that the gospel sets and what my grandmama told me was wrong.
Nah, you're right. You are I see where you're coming from. Yeah, I definitely. There's no question at all. I see where you're coming from. And to be honest, I mean, nothing is going to be solved in this conversation. Right. I think it brought up a great conversation, and it brought up a great dialogue that we're going to feature this on the site and allow others to openly comment. And maybe we'll bring you back on for some follow-up questions or some follow-up answers on the thing. Both of you gentlemen, I just want to say this. You have awesome ministries. Both of them, I've seen you on Facebook, on Twitter. I see the work that you're doing. You're awesome men of God, that you are standing up. You are reaching generations through different methods. Preaching the same message, but you changing up different methods. And I salute and I commend both of you, because you're reaching individuals that our grandfathers and fathers couldn't reach. And so I want to throw that in there. I want to thank y'all. I want to thank you so much for being so openly and so honest and transparent in your answers. And it went good. I think it brought up a great dialogue, great conversation.
Reverend Cartwright, thank you for creating this fearless dialogue. It's much needed. I think the church and the world needs to see that we can sometimes disagree and still agree, and be tactful about it and respectful about it. But most of all, I think both the church, preachers, pastors, and the community need to lift up this brother, because God knows how he feels, and the church, because anytime there's a separation of this magnitude, there's some healing that needs to take place. Right. And so, there's lessons to be learned on both parts. One, from the pastor's part, and two, on the church's part, on how to handle these issues. Because if it's never happened before, we don't know how to address it. And so I thank you for, first of all, having us up here, and then being afraid to create this kind of dialogue.
Oh, no problem at all.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Oh, no problem. Pastor Rodgers, Pastor Walker, thank you, my brothers. Thank you. Be blessed.